The best build for Anby, the best free-to-play breaker in the game, because I guess she kind of gets that title de facto because she is the only free-to-play breaker in the game, but that doesn't mean that she's bad. Despite what Pride puts her on their tier list, I don't think she's, I do think she's there, but I do think that people will get the wrong impression that she's actually not a good breaker. The reason why they put her there is because she does her job, but really nothing else outside of that. So if you really needed a solid, straightforward breaker, this is the option for you to build. Maybe you don't have a light on your account. Maybe you don't have a Lycon on your account. Maybe you don't have a Kool-Aid on your account. Maybe you don't have a Chingy in your account, right? Or maybe you only have just this breaker on your account and maybe one of the other breakers. You still would probably want to build this breaker up because now we have game modes that require 3 different teams if you cannot 3-star every stage, and this is going to be a perfect option for you to build, guys, and you should be building her up in my opinion, and we'll talk more about that in the video. But what I want to talk about first, guys, is how she actually works because, like I said, she's a very straightforward breaker. So let's just go ahead and hop into what her kit can actually do for you. The core ability, guys, is going to be giving you extra days after the 3rd hit of your basic attack. And what do I mean by this, guys, is she has 3 different things you can do here. We'll explain more of that in a second, but basically 1, 2, 3, and then as you see here, she does a little boom slam right there. That's the extra days that you're getting. That 3rd attack is getting the extra days buildup. This is the 2nd chain you can use, 1, 2, 3, and then normal skill and then attack again, which gives you around 84 there. And then for her final chain, guys, you can do 1, 2, 3, and then EX skill, which breaks this enemy, of course, and then you can slam down again for some extra damage. So, alright, guys, now hopping into her additional ability. If you have someone in the same faction, which is the Cunning Hairs, or someone with an electric ability or the electric typing, basically whenever you do a dodge counter with her like this, you're actually getting some extra energy back. This can be procced once every 5 seconds, so if you were to do it as quickly like that, then you're not getting the extra energy there, but if you're doing it once every 5 seconds like this right here, you're getting extra energy back, so this just leads to a faster uptime on your skill move, or your EX skill move, I guess you could say. And also, if you're playing some game modes like the new in-game game mode we have right now, you can actually get some free score there just from literally doing dodge counters with her. So if you have her in your team, that's a free way of getting score with her not even being like a top ranked character, right? So this is the best way that I can explain the kind of how to actually play her, because that's really the only thing with her kit, right? That's really 1, 2, 3, and then EX special attack, and then do your little slam down, and then you continue with that. When you get EX skill, you do the same thing there. Now let's go ahead and talk about the final thing in her kit that actually kind of got a buff with your recent update of 1.4. With the addition of having 3 ults in the game now, this actually does help her out quite a bit, because this does unlock you to be able to use her ultimate move, which leads to faster days times. Because while she doesn't have the highest days from her ultimate in the game by far, right? She's an A rank character, right? She actually does have a higher days from her ultimate than someone like Kaleda has. She has the same amount of days from her ultimate that Kaleda has, unless you're paying Kaleda with bin, then you get increased days from that. And while Kaleda's like a burst heavy type of stunner, she's just on the field, right? She's an on the field type stunner. So we'll talk about teams in a second here and different teams you can run her on, because I do think you would run her with different DPS types than you would someone like a Kaleda. But we're gonna get into that after we talk about what her Mindscapes do, because I do think probably most people have her close to M6, especially if you've been playing this game for a while. So let's go ahead and hop into what these Mindscapes are going to be doing and the most important ones. So starting off with her M1 first, guys, this is basically giving her increased energy regeneration rate after the 4th hit of her basic attack, which is basically that slam down attack you saw her do with her leg. This is really good when paired with the dodge counter that she can use. So basically you do 1, 2, 3, hit that attack there, and then normally by that time the enemy's attacking you. Obviously some enemies will be attacking you before that, but the good part of this is that it does give you increased regeneration rate for 30 seconds. So that is a fairly long time of getting the increased regeneration right there, and then you can just kind of dodge counter in between, but you have to get to that point first, which is where the kind of caveat comes in with it at, is because you have to get to that point first. You have to get to the 4th basic. They might not be able to get the most efficient days out on the enemy while you're trying to get to this 4th attack. You might just have to do 1, 2, 3, 4 to get the energy regeneration up, and then after the fact, then you start mixing in your days and stuff like that, just so you're getting the increased energy regeneration rate, which helps you get to your EX skill faster. M2 is okay. It increases your days by 10%. Like, it also does increase your attack or the damage you're doing on the enemy. It'll also be increasing the damage you're doing on stunned enemies as well, but you're really not going to be using her when the enemy is stunned anyways, because her whole main shtick is to break the enemy and then get her the fuck off the field so your DPS can do damage. So realistically, for me, this only gives you 10% of days, which is okay. M4, though, is kind of interesting, because what M4 is going to do is whenever she uses a chain attack or an ultimate move, off-field electric agents get 3 extra energy, so people like Harumasa can take use of this, people like Grace can take use of this, people like Yanagi can take use of this as well. Basically, any electric unit on your team can take use of this. And then her M6 is okay. It's just a damage increase for her. I mean, like, it's a 45% increased damage for her attack, but I mean, overall, I really just don't like this too much because of the fact that, I mean, like, it's extra damage for her, right? But it doesn't really affect the days that she does, and I kind of wish it did affect the days she does to give her some more viability in the future, because there are a lot of things that can power creep her. As long as an ally is doing more days on her, then she basically gets power crept, right? So I do kind of wish this was days, but honestly, I think the most important is probably like M4, because she can act as like a battery for the rest of your team. But that's really all I have to mention now on the kit breakdown. Let's go ahead and talk about her best teams now. Starting off at number 1, guys, is going to be the team with the free-to-play Harumasa, guys. Yes, and while a lot of people rank him low, he's actually just very intricate to play. I'm not gonna lie, like, you have to have a lot of tech to be able to play him correctly and get the most damage out possible. And maybe I'll make a guide on how to play him if you guys want that. He basically plays off of all quick swaps. So if you're having having a team that can play off a quick swap and then have her on the team, which is breaking the enemy shield down or breaking the enemy's daze meter down, and then he comes out in the field to do his burst damage. He kind of works like Zhu in the way where he pops onto the field whenever the enemy's broken down. So that's the state you want the enemy in. And then additionally, she's going to be battering him up as well, so that means he's able to put more of his mines on the field, which means you're able to do more overall damage with him. Hopping into team number 2 now, which is the team that I use for the most on, which is a team with Anton and Grace. Now, I know a lot of people shit on Anton and Grace, or they say, oh, Anton and Grace are not that good. When combined together, I think Anton and Grace is probably one of the better teams in the game, especially if there is a buff up for electric type damage. Anton can absolutely just cleave through enemies so fast, especially if it's built up correctly. Go watch the build guide on Anton because I do think he is underrated from what they currently have him ranked at in the game right now. Besides that though, guys, I do think that this is another good team because it gives energy to the full team. You want Anton to have good energy upkeep because if you don't have energy upkeep with Anton, that means you're not in his special stance anymore, which means you're not reproccing the shock that Grace is able to provide. And also this allows Grace to get her energy back up as well, so you're able to put shock anomalies on the enemy even faster. So she works really well in this team too. And then another team you can run around, guys, would be a team with Yanagi and Arena as well. So I mean, this would be a full shock anomaly based team. Obviously, you can replace Arena on this team for probably someone else. You already have the shock so you get her additional ability active. You could maybe run a Bernice here. You could maybe run a Piper here. Like you could run either of these characters and she still work fine. Though I do prefer a buffer on this team as well and just run a full mono shock team for Yanagi if you were to run her that way. So this is yet another good team that she can be ran in. I mean, realistically, guys, you can run her on any team. It's preferable that you run her with a Cunning Care unit and or a team with electric based character. So as I mentioned, Cunning Cares. This means she can be ran on a team with Nicole. And one of the big teams that I personally use her on as well is a team with Zhuyan, Nicole, and her. I don't have Chingy, so I use her to replace Chingy on that team to break the enemy down because, like I said before, Zhuyan, very burst heavy, Harumasa, very burst heavy, so she can work on that team as well while getting the extra energy regen up for herself because of the fact that Nicole is a Cunning Care unit. Those are the recommendations that I have on team today. Now let's go ahead and talk about her best in slot W engines because honestly, you would think that her signature W engine is her best in slot W engine. It's not, guys. The Dorima Battery Mark II is not her best in slot W engine. So to touch on that, her best in slot W engine, guys, is going to be Hellfire Gears because Hellfire Gears off rip gives you an increased 18% to your impact, which is just super nice. And then on top of that, guys, the additional ability will be giving you increased energy regen when you're off field. Whenever you're using an EX special attack, it's going to be increasing her impact even more. You can get like 20% increased impact from this as well. Overall, it gives you energy regen when she wants, and then she gives you impact as well. Hopping into what I think the best free-to-play option for her is, which is Steam Oven. Steam Oven is going to be good, guys, because first of all, 50% energy regen. Absolutely massive. She's getting that EX special up like that, okay? So very good there to start off with. And then on top of that, guys, for every 10 energy she acclimates, she's going to be increasing her own impact by 3.2% up to 8 stacks. That's a 25.6 increase impact you're getting with this as well, on top of the 50% energy regen. And then whenever you consume your energy, you get 8 additional seconds to keep this buff up for. So essentially what you do on your bosses and stuff with this W engine is you build it up, you get your EX special off, you do your 1, 2, 3 EX special hold, and then you would go into your chain attack or your ultimate move here to get the maximum impact off possible. So this is going to be her best in slot free play option, and it's going to be better than her signature W engines. Outside of that though, guys, I mean, you could run her signature. It gives her increased electric damage, it gives her increased energy regeneration rate, it gives her extra impact. But Steam Oven is my pick for best free to play option, and that's the one that I would be rocking with, guys. So pick that one. I think that's going to be the best bang for your buck. But that's really all that I have to say now about her best in-slot W engines. Let's go ahead now and talk about her best in-slot disk drive stats, and everything like that. But wait, pause. Stop right there, gamers. You thought we were going to get to these disk drives before we actually talked about you subscribing to my channel? Guys, come on. Hit the subscribe button now. You might have watched this one in the video, or better yet, you probably got scammed by clicking on a timestamp that said best disk drive sets or something of the sorts. So hit that subscribe button if you got scammed, and hit if you've watched this one in the video. If you didn't do either of those, then how did you get here? Maybe you just randomly clicked. I don't know. Anyways, guys, back to those best in-slot disk drive sets now. So, 4-piece set, Shockstar Disco, hands down the best set you can run. Is going to be giving her 6% impact for a 2-piece, and then on top of that, guys, from basic attack, dash attacks, dodge counters, you'll be inflicting 20% more days on the main target. Like I said before, dodge counters gives her extra energy, so that's really good. Basic attacks, that's where she's getting actually a lot of her days from as well. Because that 4th basic attack will be getting increased days too, so that's going to be really good for her. And then for the 2-piece set here, guys, just 2-piece swing jazz. Energy regen, energy regen, energy regen. The more energy regen, the more battery, and then also the more EX, which means the more days. So, easy as that, guys. I mean, that's really the only set that I can honestly recommend to you guys here until we get another, like, stunner set in the game. That's going to be the de facto best 4-piece and 2-piece set that you can run right now in the game, and I really don't recommend anything outside of that. Now, hopping into those main and subsets you want to hit. For the 4-piece, guys, you want to be hitting a crit rate or crit damage just to get as much damage as possible, really. For the 5-piece, guys, it's going to be electric damage or attack percentage, and then finally, for the 6 is going to be impact. The more impact you have, the more you can stun the enemy and daze the enemy, right? So you want as much of that as possible, and you can't get that in your substats anyways. So making sure that you get this in a main set is really important, and like I said before, you could run energy regen here if you needed the extra energy regen. With the W engines we have, especially if you're running the Steam Oven one we mentioned before, that's an automatic 50% increase energy regen. And then that 2-piece swing jazz does give you an additional 20% energy regen. So that would be the go-to option. Now, if you don't have either of those two options, you don't want to build those for some reason, then I guess run energy regen here. It would help her out with battering. If that was like the main priority you had her on the team for, but out of niche scenarios, definitely just run impact here. For those substats, guys, just crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, there is realistically no like target stats to be hitting with her. Her job is to stun the enemy, and really the only way you can get impact is from main stats, and the W engine. So there's like no like specified stat to hit. Obviously, get as much crit rate, crit damage as possible, get as much attack percent as possible. So maybe she's able to get like a sub DPS level of damage when you're working towards breaking the enemy down. That would be the only thing that I can recommend there. But really, just get the most damaging substats possible. Build her like a sub DPS and those substats. Now the moment you've been waiting for. Why should you be building her? First of all, guys, I think that she realistically has a really easy build that you can put on her, because realistically her best in slot set is going to be a 4-piece Shockstar Disco. When you're farming this setup, you're actually be farming up the Thunder Metal as well. So mainly you're using her with electric units as well. So I mean, you're basically farming up for your electric sub DPS too. So it can be all encompassing to her team. So first of all, she's a very easy farm. That's not to mention when farming for Swing Jazz, you're getting chaotic metal. So like I said, that Zhuyan team and Nicole, you're farming up for them as well. So I mean, both of these options are going to be like great farming spots for you. Secondly, guys, like I mentioned before, she's an on-field breaker. This means you use her in burst type scenarios. Haramasa, Zhuyan, very, very good here. Now, she might not be as good in situations like with like maybe an Ellen Joe or maybe a Miyabi or something of the sort like that, just because of the fact that you're having them on field for a lot longer than you would normally have it. And normally in those situations, a burst type of breaker would be better, like Colada or something like that. But you can still use her in those teams. I don't want to say that you can't use her in those teams. You're just taking away from their on-field time. But she is going to work very good for those burst heavy type units, which I feel like we're going to be getting a lot more of in the future, because we already have so many of these on-field type DPS. Getting these burst heavy DPS and getting to that break faster just leads to more damage overall. Overall though, guys, I do think that she can be a great breaker for your account, especially if you don't have multiple break units pulled already onto the account, or if you haven't really built much, right? I guess the part where I would say not to build her as, maybe if you have a Chingy on your account already, you already have a Lycan on your account, you're pretty much set. I don't really recommend building her in those type of scenarios, because you already kind of have like 2 great breakers on your account. But if you don't have 2 breakers on your account already, you don't have a Chingy like me, you don't have a Lycan like me, and maybe you just have a Colada and a Lighter, I think she's a great option for your account, especially now this new in-game game mode of having to need 3 different teams, and maybe they introduce something like this, the Shiyu defense in the future as well, where you want 3 different teams. I think that she could be a great addition for your account. Anyways, guys, that's really going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like, maybe subscribe as well. But that's going to do it, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.